Thank you for watching today's video about our new and exciting N2K Protect product. N2K Protect is the world's first ever NMEA 2000 cybersecurity system and has come about as a result of the National Marine Electronic Association's new cybersecurity work group, which has been set up to look at all aspects of NMEA data protocols and to look at all of the possible security threats that could occur on these in the future. And N2K Protect is the first sort of commercial product to come out of that work group. So I'm going to show you in this video today the key features of N2K Protect, and also then show you what how you would operate it on a boat when you're installing and setting up an NMEA 2000 network. So basically, N2K Protect is a little black box. It's got an integral NMEA 2000 cable, and it just needs a spare T-piece on the network for it to plug into. It takes its power from the network and also takes all its data from the network. And it basically it has two key features. The first is that it's an excellent installation tool for the installer to test and validate the equipment on the NMEA 2000 network. And then after the NMEA 2000 network has been set up and commissioned, N2K Protect will take a snapshot of all of the devices and all of the data that were on the network when it was first commissioned, and it will save that in its non-volatile memory. And from that moment on, it will be constantly looking at all of the devices and all of the data on the network and comparing it to that original snapshot. And it will, if it sees any changes or any odd behavior of devices that are new or haven't been seen before, it will sound an alarm. It will also send an NMEA 2000 alert to any other devices on the NMEA 2000 network. And if you're using it with one of our 4G or 5G router products, it will also send an SMS alert message directly to your mobile phone, warning you of the potential security problem. So that's basically N2K Protect in a nutshell. I'm going to show you now how you would typically use it on a boat to commission the NMEA 2000 network, and then how you take that all-important snapshot for the device to compare the network against in the future. So I'm going to basically, N2K Protect will create its own wireless network on the boat, which you can connect wirelessly to it. It asks you to enter a password, which is detailed in the manual, and you'll be able to then wirelessly connect to it. And then if you run a browser on your mobile device, as I've got here, I'm just going to switch to Chrome, and you put in the http://n2kprotect.local, up will come the home page of the N2K Protect, and it's creating this itself. It's not going online to do any of this. This is a web page that the little N2K Protect box is creating. So I'm going to show you now. You've got a series of buttons that you can go into. I'm just going to quickly show you the simple NMEA 2000 network that we've got set up here. We've got Lowrance GPS, we've got ActiSense Gateway, Garmin Display, AMR Speed, Depth and Temp Transducer, one of our own IC Sense wireless gateways, and also the N2K Protect here at the bottom. It's taken a very high address. It's the highest address it can take, 251. It does that so it creates the least amount of disruption on the network. And all these devices that are shown with a green heart if they're active and sending out data. And if you want to know a little bit more about one of the devices, you can click on the eye icon, and then it gives you the product information about the device and also the config information, which I'll talk about more a bit later. So I'm going to show you quickly what else it can do. You can also have a look at all the PGNs, the data messages that are on the network. So you'll see here a whole series of different PGNs, as they're called, and these are the messages that transfer all of the data between the devices on the network. So if we want to have a look at one of these, for instance the water depth here, I can just click on there and up comes the different fields that are in that data message, and the key one here is the water depth below the transducer, 12.3 meters. So that's a useful tool for looking at the NMEA 2000 data on the network, but the really cool features of the N2K Protect are in this button here, the install button. So this is typically what an installer or an electronics dealer would do when they're setting up an NMEA 2000 network. you saw there briefly a little pop-up message. It was just doing a quick audit of the devices on the network, and now we can do any of these series of tests and also tools, configuration tools that we've got here as well. So for instance, if I want to check to see what devices on the NMEA 2000 network have been certified, and that certified means that they've been tested and checked by the NMEA, then we can click here, and it quickly goes through and it shows you that every device on the network is a certified NMEA 2000 device, which is good news and just what you want. What we can also do is do a name verification. So every device on an NMEA 2000 network has what's called an NMEA name, and this test just makes sure that those names are valid and verified. If they're wrongly formatted, it could be an indication of a malicious device on the network. Have a quick look here. We've got a third device option here, test. It just identifies the gateways that are currently on the network, because a gateway is by its nature is a device where you can take data from one system and put it onto the NMEA 2000 network. So it's potentially the weakest point from a security point of view, devices on the network. So this just sort of flags up to you, reminds you of which devices on the network, which are gateways, which could potentially have be taken over and used as a way to hack the network. Moving down, we've got the network topography tests. So this looks for things like duplicate device instances. So this is where devices could be trying to clone or appear to be a device that it's not. So and also what you really want is you don't want two devices of the same thing. So if you had, for instance, two depth transducers on the boat, one on the port, one on the starboard side, you want those devices to have different instances so they can be identified, and so that's a good test. It checks that there's no duplicate instances. It also looks at duplicate PGNs. Now this is where you have two devices outputting the same PGN, and this can sometimes cause problems where you have one device saying one value and another device, which might be say offline, is showing no data, and so that can also cause issues on a network. So here it just says that PGN 129029 is being output by the devices at address 23 and at 0. So that's probably a GPS. Yeah, that's a GPS PGN. And this would be this list of duplicate PGNs is something that probably is not indicating any major problems, but it just helps the dealer to quickly, or the installer that's installing it, to check to make sure that there's no duplicate data that's going to cause an issue. Then we have data sources. So what this does, it just looks at the devices on the network, and for the key sort of data like GPS, GNSS, or depth, or wind, or boat speed, it just identifies which device is the primary source of data on the network, and that can be quite useful when you've got backup systems and multiple systems that are outputting GPS data. Now, moving down, so that's the sort of installation tests, and that allows an installer or dealer to quickly see any issues on the network. But what happens if there is an issue? So for instance, if there is two devices with the same instance, well, you have a configuration tool here where you can actually tell a device to change its instance. So for instance, let's try, I'll just do it on a digital yacht. So at the moment, our gateway has a device instance of 0. So I'm going to change that to 9 so that we can do that. And immediately you'll hear an alarm going off, because that's actually changed the topography of the network. So the N2K Protect immediately says, oh, don't like that. And we can actually, I'll show you in a minute the log of all the errors that it's seen, and you'll see that one come up. So it's creating a new network map because of the change it detected. And if I go quickly now to the devices list, you'll see that our digital yacht gateway has changed its device instance to 9, and it's yellow and it's highlighted because that's not the value it had when the snapshot was taken originally on here. So that's a potential problem. We'll go back to the install. It's just going to take we go. And what else can we do from here? We can also, for instance, sometimes you want a device that's got a very high CAN address. Say, for instance, a GPS sensor. You want that GPS sensor to be the primary source of GPS. You might want to change its force it to have a lower CAN address so that other devices see it as being a higher priority device, because the devices with the lowest CAN addresses are seen by other devices as the highest priority. So again, there, if we go start, we can, what should we do now? We'll go to use that again. It's got an IP address, sorry, a CAN address of 100 at the moment, so we're going to make that 99, and I'll set that. So it's successfully set that. We should get an alarm, which we do, just to warn us that that's another change on the network. And we'll go to the devices, and you'll see now that not only has it got a changed device instance, it's got the changed CAN address as well. So again, it's still got this warning sign to show that there's a potential problem there. So that's the main. There's one more tool that I didn't show you, which is quite a useful one for installers. So it's configuration info programming, and this is where there is a particular PGN called configuration info, which allows you to store data about the a device. So our default for our devices, we always just put installation information 1 and installation information 2. But for instance, if I wanted to put here location rear cabin right hand side, and that's quite useful information particularly for black boxes where you don't quite know where they are on the boat. The installer can put this information in, and then from that point on, that information will be available in the configuration info on the device. So if we go back to the devices and we come down here, click on that, it's telling us that the warnings about that device, but what I'm interested here is the config info, and you'll see there you go, it's changed. So now it's location rear cabin right hand side, and that is useful information that the installer can put in for each device, and they can do all of that through the web interface on here. So let's just go back, make sure I've not missed anything. So we've got a few more miscellaneous tests. We can look for devices that are outputting no data. So for instance, at the moment, the GNSS, the Lowrance, is outputting no data because basically it's under the table, so it's not getting a position fix. And also the depth transducer is also not outputting data because it's just sat there on a chair and it's not in any water. So that's those no data. We can also do a product firmware audit where it will list all the devices on the network with all of the versions of firmware inside, and you can save that as a CSV file, which is useful for the installer. And last but not least, you have the total LEN calculation. This is another important one. It calculates the power that each of the devices is taking and works out the total for you. And you can make sure that all the cabling is going to be capable of taking that amount of power. So that's all of the tools and configurations and everything that you can do with the device when you're installing it. At the end of all of that, you want to take a CAN shot, that snapshot of the network, and you do that. It will now ask us if we want to lock down the N2K Protect by entering a super user password. Now, I would recommend that you do this because it stops anyone from just making changes or to the network that you don't want to. And it's no point by having a security device on the network if anyone can go in and change it. So I'm going to enter a password here. I mean, I'm just not recommending this as a password for you to use, but it's just so that I remember what I put in. And that is then saved, and from now on it's going to take the CAN shot, the snapshot, store it to memory, and the only time at any time now that you try and take another snapshot, So if, for instance, you've changed a piece of equipment and you need to take another one, it will ask you for that super user password, and you won't be able to take a new snapshot without that password being entered. So it's very important that the installer, dealer or owner needs to make a note of that super user password. If for any reason you lose that password, then you'll have to contact Digital Yacht, and we may have to have the equipment back. Okay, but there you go, it's just taking another can shot. So all of those changes I made to the network will now be seen and stored away, and they won't be coming up now with a warning because they are part of the new network setup. So that's that. I'm going to go into the status screen now. Now I'm getting a nice pulsating green padlock, which tells me that all of the real-time tests are running and that they're being passed. It gives me the bus load of all the network traffic that's on there. We're only down at 3%, which is next to nothing. Any of these things, if you're not quite sure what they are, you just click on the question mark and it will tell you help screen about what what you're looking at there. We've got these are the real-time tests that it's doing now. So it's checking all the network devices, it's checking that the all those device instances, addresses and everything are all okay. It's checking that the GPS signal is consistent coming in. If it jumps by more than 100 meters, then it will sound an alarm. And last but not least, the PGN integrity is looking at all the PGNs that are being output, making sure that they're output at the right speed or not. And it's actually a yellow cross at the moment, which is a sort of a minor warning. So if these go to red, it's a critical warning. It's just refreshing it there. And it keeps account of all the error logs that are happening there. You've got 4 at the moment, and you can see they're all minor ones. The TX rate of a particular PGN is out of spec. That might mean that it's output faster or slower than it says it should do. It recommends in the specification, but those are minor. If it was a critical error, I'm just going to plug in a device to the network now, a new device that it's not seen before, and it will immediately sound an alarm once that device powers up. So here we go. I've just plugged the device in, and we've got a critical now alarm. So I've got the alarm going off. It's shown now in bold that there's a new device detected at address 250, unknown device. We've now got the red padlock, and you've also got the other network device test failing. So that's critical. We can go to the device list and see there that the new device has been identified. So that is really the essence of what N2K Protect is doing. It makes a record of the good network as it was the day it was commissioned, and it then from that point on looks for any changes or strange activity. So that's N2K Protect. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video of what it can do. If you want more information, please visit our website at digitalyacht.co.uk, and there'll be full information on there about how you can order and buy N2K Protect. Thanks very much for watching.